that is directed towards the defense team in this matter. It is very important, considering what has been happening throughout this nation with threats to the Speaker of the House and violence that has incurred, that we do not create an atmosphere where dog whistles are being emanated from this courtroom, encouraging folks to act on those same types of behaviors. This is a sentencing hearing. We are asking the court to direct the state to direct those witnesses to address the matters at hand, and that is their feelings with respect to how this particular sentence impacted them and how that will be helpful for the court to render judgment. But to direct any other statements or any other suggestions to the defense and to the jurors to encourage or incite folks to act on those encouragements is not appropriate.
There has been no incitement, there has been no remarks. How you could equate violence, I mean,
I agree, Mr. Weeks.
Talk about is the defendant's violence.
All right, and respectfully, Mr. Weeks, Ms. McNeil, who's lead counsel in this case, has made all of these arguments. I've heard them. There's been 16 people that have testified. Only 2 have made a direct comment to the lawyers. And
you know, Judge, I'm standing here and I see that Jeff Marcus jumped up really quickly, but no one jumped up when people were referring to karma acting in the universe. No one was jumping up when they were referring to the defense children. No one jumped up to try to tap down that rhetoric. That is the rhetoric that I'm talking about. That is what I'm trying to be very clear on. Jeff Marcus, the state, they can hide behind their arguments, but we all are witnessing what is occurring in this courtroom.
which is myself. I'm a judge,
And
I understand that I'm in
Thank you,
charge
Judge.
of the decorum, and I feel that 99% or a great percentage of what has been said has been appropriate. Everybody has maintained decorum, but for a few comments, it's best to just move on as opposed to highlight them.
This is true, Judge, but I am witnessing a building of momentum, and I'm encouraging the court to direct the state to tap down on that momentum so it does not reoccur and it does not become a theme. Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, for the record, the only thing the state has said to any of these witnesses when they get up is, would they like to say something on behalf of the victim they're representing? There's been no encouraging or inciting, as Mr. Weeks has put on this record. That is a blatant falsehood and a recreation of the record. As far as no objections being made, it's the defense that could have objected. It's not the state's duty to object to their own witnesses when they're testifying.
Okay. Listen, I've already heard. If you have anything else to say, you can put it in writing at a later time. I've heard from both sides more than once. That's going to be it. I've made my decision. Like I said, 99% of what's been testified to has been appropriate. I do not want to highlight the few things that were said that were perhaps not appropriate, and let's move on.
Judge, I'm asking for 20 seconds.
You can have as many seconds as you want in writing, and you can put all of your objections in writing. They've been made multiple times from your chief assistant, from Ms. McNeil, and I don't want to hear anything else. I've already heard it. Is there something that has not already been argued?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, exactly what is it?
Judge, before Mr. Scherer took the podium and testified before this court, I wanted to reflect that both Mr. Marcus and Mr. Satz looked at the statement prior to the reading. And so their implicit adoption of what he was saying, this improper arguments, and the court should chastise.
Okay, but what you are doing right now is highlighting something and making more of a spectacle. So if your office in general does not want to facilitate or incite violence, then we need to just sit down and move on. That's it. There were 18 witnesses, 16 or 18 witnesses that testified today. There was nothing that was said until Ms. McNeil made her point made, and, you know, we're moving on.
But is the court going to do anything about maybe stopping it from happening again?
When these people are upset about specific things that have gone on from that table, like shooting the middle finger up at this court and laughing and joking. Miss McNeil, be quiet. When these people have sat in this courtroom and watched this behavior from that table, and they want to say that they're not happy about it, what is the problem?
Judge, I have no problem because I have thick skin. But once you bring in my children, I think that's highly improper. And it's
I didn't even know you have children. I don't know what you're talking about. Your children? What about your children?
For them to comment on my children is highly improper, and for this court to allow that kind of testimony is also improper.
I don't remember any comments about any children. And if there was, it obviously didn't, it came and went without me noticing it.
Judge, I can assure you that if they were talking about your children, you would definitely notice it.
You need to sit down right now. You're out of line. In fact, you're excused. You need to go sit in the back with your chief public defender.
He's the public defender, Judge.
Mr. Weeks, please ask the lawyer from your office to go sit down and not say anything else. To try to threaten my children and bring up my children is inappropriate. Go to the back of the room now. That just violated about every rule of professional responsibility that I have never. If you're going to get up here and you're going to...
Judge, I asked you to go sidebar on this matter.
You, sidebar or not, you don't have one of your assistant public defenders say something about my children?
Judge, that same venom that the court is expressing is the same venom that defense counsel had to sit through this entire morning when their children
She brought up her children multiple times during the trial. Nobody knows if I'm barren or not. They don't know about my children.
Judge.
Sit down. Sit down.
Judge.
Sit down, Mr. Weeks.
Please do not summarily dismiss me.
I'm summarily dismissing
I'm asking
you.
the
Go
court.
sit down.
I'm asking the court. I asked the court to go sidebar.
Go sit down. You don't threaten the
Judge,
court's children.
everyone
Your
in this
assistant just
courtroom-
did that. Go sit down.
No one in this courtroom had to endure what we had to
Go
endure.
sit down. Miss McNeil has made her children a spectacle more than once during this trial. That was her choice. You have absolutely no right to have one of your assistants come up here and suggest something about my children. Now, please go sit down.
Judge.
You're inappropriate and out of line. Go sit down.
Judge, may I have a brief recess?
No. Go sit down.
May I have a brief recess so I can speak to my attorneys?
We're moving on with the sentencing, Mr. Weeks.
So can I have a brief recess?
No.
Thank you.
It's 1:36. Thank you. State, go ahead and call your next witness.
Mr. Anthony Montalto.
Good afternoon, sir. Is it Mr. Montalto Jr. or Sr. that's going to be speaking, or both?
The third gets to go first.
Okay, sorry, the third. I just was trying to indicate that you were younger. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please tell me your full name or state your full name for the record.
Anthony Vincent Montalto III.
State whenever you're ready.
Mr. Montalto, would you like to say something about your sister Gina?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead.
February 14th, 2018. I was at Westglades Middle School in my 5th period class, filming a project with my friends. when I heard a fire alarm over at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. I then heard gunshots and ran inside. I sat on my desk and I felt something strange. I didn't know what it was until I felt a large pain in my chest. I realized it was a message saying my sister, Gina Rose Montalto, would not be coming home today. I ignored it out of hope, and I waited until I was clear to go home. I got on my bike, and I rode as fast as I could. I dropped my stuff at the door, and I yelled for my mom and dad. They were leaving to go see if Gina was safe. They told me to wait at home with my uncle. At 10 p.m., they returned as I was eating dinner. They had tears in their eyes. They said she was dead. The worst part about it was, that morning, I did not say goodbye to her. Gina was my only sister. She was fun to be with. She was really smart. She would help me whenever I needed it. I will never have that again. I will never be able to watch TV with her, talk about books with her. Every day, I walk by her room and see that it's empty. Every day, I see pictures and I think about her. Every day I wake up and I remember that she will not be there. It's a great pain that only I feel. To go from a younger brother to an only child in less than 6 hours is a dramatic change for anyone. Every day, I wish I could come home and see her again. Every day, I wish this had never happened. Every day, I wish I had said goodbye like I should have. While this reality I now live in is an unfortunate truth, an even more unfortunate truth is that this country has forgotten who the victim is. The murderer is not a victim of drinking during pregnancy. He is not a victim of mental health issues. He is a murdering bastard that should be made an example by being sentenced to death. He shouldn't live while my sister rots in the grave. The jury has failed the families, the victims, and me. Was this mass murderer a victim when he put the gun to my sister's chest and shot her? Was he a victim when he shot her again? Was he a victim when he shot her 2 more times on his second pass? Some jurors may have thought so, but I know he is just a murdering bastard. I'm speaking about this today because I've held my tongue long enough. People have heard from adults and parents, police and medical staff, but they haven't heard from me. A boy whose life was changed in a flash when this murdering bastard chose to kill my fun-loving older sister, Gina Rose Montalto. I hope the jurors that allowed him to live will regret their decision after hearing this from me today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. State would next call Mr. Tony Montalto.
Good afternoon, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Anthony Vincent Montalto.
Okay, state whenever you're ready.
Mr. Montalto, is there something you'd like to say on your daughter Gina's behalf?
Yes, there is.
Please do so.
I will begin with some positives by thanking the Eagles Haven team for helping our families endure the hours spent in the courthouse. By thanking you, Judge Scherer, for presiding over the trial with all its twists and turns, as well as keeping the press at bay while allowing them to inform the public. You were as compassionate as the law allowed to our families. Thanks to the state attorneys that prosecuted this case for your dedication, your professionalism, and constant communication with our families. To the Victims Advocates team, thanks for sitting with us, letting us vent our frustrations and answer an untold number of questions, from what to expect next to where is prosciutto. This case, with 17 innocent students and teachers murdered at school, is why we have the death penalty in Florida's laws. If the jury had followed that law, if the jury took in the evidence presented, there is only one logical and fact-based outcome. Sadly, the jury ignored the facts and went with emotion. They worried about how they would feel if this murdering bastard was put to death by the state of Florida for committing this heinous crime. They were selfish and misguided and allowed prisoner number 0893407 to avoid the punishment he deserved. The jury was worn out and did not want to be sequestered. The jury instructions were complex, and I believe these factors combined and led to a less than thorough deliberation process. Did they consider what kind of message their verdict sent to our nation's students and teachers when they found a way to excuse the murder of Gina and the others? Did they consider how they would explain their verdict to the siblings of the victims, as my wife and I struggled to do? The current requirement for a unanimous decision for a death verdict is tough to meet. It allows one activist juror with preconceived bias against the death penalty to swing the case in favor of evil. Once one juror shows sympathy, decides that they can't live with the tough decision to hold a murderer, and in this case, a mass murderer, accountable, it relieves the others and allows them an avenue to avoid voting for the death penalty. The vote is not to put a random individual to death. It is called the death penalty because it's supposed to be imposed due to the actions of the convicted murderer. Assuming that's supported by facts, as the jury acknowledged clearly in this case. An interesting historical fact is that now two of the most infamous mass murderers in Florida history, Ted Bundy and this murderer of my child and 16 others, did not receive a unanimous verdict of death in our state's courts. Perhaps it's time for the state legislature to make a change, back to a simple majority or perhaps a supermajority of 9 votes out of 12, to impose the maximum punishment when the aggravating factors warrant it. This would be more fair to the victims. My beautiful, bubbly, and kind daughter deserved to live a happy and full life. She should have been protected at her school from the monster sitting here, with no less than, 6 BSO deputies, as he enjoys the protection of his rights in this courtroom. I applaud the court and the prosecution team for following the ideals of our justice system, as the evil murderer enjoyed a fair trial. I don't believe the case was fair to the victims. The court allowed the defense to show every aspect of prisoner 8093407's life prior to the execution of Gina and her classmates. Pictures showing his smiling face, while at the same time claiming life was so tough it justified the mass murder of innocent students and teachers in school. Our families were prohibited from bringing photos of our murdered loved ones to the courtroom. We couldn't even wear bracelets or pins to court to represent the victims. The court did everything it could to dehumanize our beautiful Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, who were massacred by this admitted murderer. My family and the others had to sit like church mice in the courtroom for fear of influencing the jury and possibly causing a mistrial. We all showed amazing grace and decorum as we learned the terrible things this murdering bastard did to our children, spouses, and fathers. The justice system even stops the jury from considering our victim impact statements. How could it be a fair trial when the only people who can speak for the victims, those who cannot speak for themselves, have the jury instructed to disregard our words? The system is biased against the victims. It trampled the First Amendment rights of my family in a misguided effort to protect the perpetrator of these heinous crimes. This injustice must be fixed. The victims' rights must be recognized. As for the defense team, you had a job to do. You had no case because the facts of the cold, calculated, horrific actions should have sealed this mass murderer's fate via the law. Somehow, though, you all managed to be petty and marginally professional. You disrespected the court in words and action. You laughed and joked with the twisted and purely evil man you defended. You brought in talented out-of-town personnel to bolster your team and help represent the murderer of my child. No expense was spared as you sought out experts in established and in questionable science, many of which you did not use as you chose to prey on the jury's emotions. What was the cost of prisoner 0893407's defense to the taxpayers of Broward County? That number has yet to be revealed. Those citizens should all ask why. Why was so much effort put towards this prisoner, while in this very building, the same week his verdict was read, 2 other murderers were sentenced to death for their crimes? Quite frankly, you had no right to ask this jury for mercy. He showed no mercy when he shot my forever 14-year-old Gina in the chest, just as he thought about doing when he searched the internet for months before. The dirtbag even came back and shot her on a second pass. Unbelievable. As I read to the court last time I spoke here, Gina loved life. She loved her family, and she was literally a lifesaver. She would have gone on to change the world had she been able to grow up and fulfill her potential. My family had hoped this jury would follow the law and vote to give the low-life admitted killer the maximum penalty allowed to the fullest extent of the law. We expected the admitted mass murderer to die in prison and at the soonest possible opportunity under the law. He should not be allowed any kind of life, any joy, or any time to reflect quietly on his continued existence. We all have choices to make in life, struggles we must all work through. Despite these struggles, we should look to help one another. Yet the dirtbag murderer, who has now gotten a fair trial, chose to kill and maim as many innocent students as teachers as he could, without remorse, without compassion, and with extreme prejudice. He deserves the same treatment throughout his stay in the state penitentiary system. He has had a lot of help throughout his life, and yet he chose to attack our nation's future by shooting up a school. The murdering bastard that took my daughter's life has benefited from the grace and protections of every system our society offers. He should now be placed in a correctional facility where he is forced to interact without those protections. The misguided jury thought prisoner 089-3407 was failed by society. To be clear, the system, schools, mental health professionals, law enforcement, and now the justice system failed my daughter Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, which he chose to murder. A planned, cold, calculated, heinous attack where the monster chose to pull his trigger 139 individual times. Today, the court prepares to sentence this admitted mass murderer. However, the legacy and greatness of the victims is being preserved and extended because Stand With Parkland, formed by our damaged yet amazingly resilient families, succeeded in creating the Federal School Safety Clearinghouse, which today begins a 3-day national summit on how to protect America's schools. As for my wife, Jennifer, my son, Anthony, and our entire family, we will remember Gina every day. We will honor her memory at every opportunity. We will work to make our nation's schools safer for other students and teachers. And the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation will help others achieve their goals, spread kindness, and keep Gina's light shining for all in this world to see. Thank you.